One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon on July 20th, 1969. The year was 1961. Fear of Russian intelligence was palpable. President John Kennedy was president at that time. Competition was at an all-time high, as many countries engaged in the desire for successful exploration of the moon. However, reaching the moon was no small feat. A spacecraft must have the ability to leave Earth's gravity well, and the only means to do this at that time was with a rocket that could continue acceleration in order to break through the vacuum outside the atmosphere. Once reaching the moon, the spacecraft must then overcome the moon's own gravitational pull and the resulting accelerating speeds in order to pull off a landing intact. To withstand a crash landing, the spacecraft must decelerate to near 99 miles per hour and be strong enough to withstand a hard landing impact. For spacecrafts that contain humans, a soft landing was imperative, where speeds must be decelerated enough to avoid death. The first three failed attempts by the United States were made in 1962. But where we failed, the Soviets succeeded by achieving a hard lunar landing with a ruggedized camera in 1962. You see, politically, this caused growing unease. To understand the growing apprehension, take into account the political context of that historical era. World War II had unveiled a number of new and deadly innovations such as Blitzkrieg-style surprise attacks, which is a forceful attack using armored infantry in addition to air attacks. And then the ballistic missile that killed thousands in London and Antwerp, the attack on Pearl Harbor, as well as the atomic bomb, which left hundreds of thousands dead in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Two superpowers emerged during this time: the United States and the Soviet Union. Ideologically opposed, but both driven to succeed. The development of the hydrogen bomb in both countries left little doubt to the rest of the world. Then on October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 as the first satellite able to orbit the Earth, thus initiating the space race. This event came as a shock to the United States, who now felt extremely vulnerable and fearful given the ability of the Soviet Union to send a surprise attack with nuclear-tipped rockets possibly in under 30 minutes. Additionally, the radio beacon from the Sputnik 1 could be heard every 96 minutes as it passed overhead. Widely viewed as effective propaganda, the simple sound reminded every American of the perception of Soviet technology superiority. Every 96 minutes. To compound this, a string of subsequent Soviet achievements reinforced the ideology. In 1959, the launching of the R-7 rocket escaped the Earth's gravity, later landing on the moon in the first hard crash impact to capture the first photography of the never-seen-before far side of the moon. President Kennedy was deeply aware of the psychological impact of this growing fear. He understood the giant Goliath of fear that could be overtaking every American every 96 minutes. In true leadership form, JFK brought the people together in a unified vision. In JFK's special message to Congress delivered on May 25, 1961, during the height of the Cold War, Kennedy audaciously challenged NASA and America. I believe, President Kennedy said, that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth. It's been a little over 8 years since President Kennedy's challenge. Flights from Gagarin and Shepard quickly followed his speech. But there has still been no successful landing, and the decade is coming to a close, and the Soviet success is looming near. A bold decision is made by NASA to send Apollo to the moon on the first manned flight of the monumental Saturn V rocket. It's the morning of July 16th, and the Apollo astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, enter the 363-foot rocket that will use 7.5 million pounds of thrust to propel the Saturn V into space. History and the heart of people worldwide. 9:32 a.m., the engines fire. The Apollo 11 clears the towers, and boom, liftoff. The Apollo 11 was on its way to the moon. 3 days later, the crew is in the lunar orbit. Once entering the moon's orbit, the Eagle can now descend to the surface carrying Armstrong and Aldrin, while Collins remains in orbit in the command module of the Columbia. The first challenge presented itself when it came time to set the Eagle down on the surface of the Sea of Tranquility. You see, realizing the surface was scattered with boulders, Armstrong improvises by manually piloting the ship. During the final seconds of the descent, a warning light appears, and NASA's communicator, Charlie Duke, is explaining to Aldrin that they only had 60 seconds left of fuel to make it down. Yes, 60 seconds. They had a specified amount to land on the lunar surface and a specified amount to return to the space shuttle. Although Aldrin recalls the moment, and this is what he said: okay, 100 feet, 60 seconds. We'd better ease down. But he knew that Armstrong already had enough on his mind since he had taken control of the module since it had reached an altitude of 500 feet. Although his mind was screaming, "Hurry up! Hurry up!" he remained calm. As Armstrong stared the Eagle down, there in front of them loomed a large crater that would have spelt disaster. And if that wasn't enough, the computer alarms started going off in the module. Although it was realized that it was trying to do many things at once, Aldrin concedes, it tended to distract a little bit. The Eagle then dropped 90 feet over the next 30 seconds, leaving the crew with just a minute of fuel left to navigate the final 10 feet to the lunar surface. Finally, they knew they were going to make it. Wow, it was a feat for the ages, succeeded by the smallest of margins indeed. On July 20th, 1969, NASA fulfilled the challenge set forth by President Kennedy almost 10 years prior, when Apollo 11's lunar module, Eagle, touched down on the surface of the moon in the Sea of Tranquility. Later years brought other astronauts to the moon's surface before the Apollo program ended, including Gene Cernan, who left the barren lunar surface remarking, "We leave as we came, and, God willing, we shall return with peace and hope for all mankind." Interestingly, much has changed over the years. Our Cold War Soviet rivals are now our partners on the International Space Station. The technological feats that JFK created gave rise to countless benefits on Earth, including medical technologies, telecommunications, computer technology, and weather forecasting. President John F. Kennedy was a man deeply touched with the people he led. Knowing the fear that was mounting due to the threat of Soviet missiles, he set upon Americans the task to focus on a goal that would change the course of the world. While the Goliath of fear could have taken over the people, resulting in tragedy, instead he called upon the people to find their inner David of unification. As a result, history was made. During the times of Saul, Goliath, a monster, terrorized the people of Israel, until the youngest son of Jesse, named David, convinced Saul, the ruler, to take on Goliath. David's determination, faith, and courage helped him to slay the dragon Goliath. Today, we gather forces around an uncommon passion for courage. Courage to devour the Goliath that threatens our lives. We challenge you to discover the David within you that will smash and crumble that beast to the ground.